Hello, my name is David Bryan, and this is Curiosity Invited, a podcast inspired by endless curiosity. Tune in for an open-minded conversation about interesting and important things. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Curiosity Invited. My name is David Bryan, and I have the great pleasure of speaking to a young man, not quite as young as when I first met him, Matt Van Horn. Matt Van Horn is an American entrepreneur and the CEO and co-founder of June, maker of the June Intelligent Oven. Previously, he co-founded Zimride, now called the ride-sharing service that you've all heard about, Lyft, was the vice president of business at Path, P-A-T-H, Path, and ran partnerships at Digg. He also worked at Apple while attending college, something I remember, where he was Apple's higher education marketer for the school. And Matt, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for giving up your time. I know you're glued to the telephone, to the screen all day. And thanks. So what's left out of that? What's left out of that bio that's worth saying?
I don't know, probably all the times I probably should have been expelled from school by you, but because it was you kept giving me a second chance. So thank you for allowing me to do some of those things.
Did you do things that were expellable?
No, not intentionally. Like I don't know, like I've always thought of you like me, like my friends group, we were like Harry Potter and Ron Weasley and you were Dumbledore, and it's not like they were bad kids that should have been expelled, but like they should have been expelled for some of the things they kind of did by accident because of other stuff that happened. So we were like that, I think.
Well, I like the Dumbledore metaphor. So good. Yeah. Fabulous. Yeah, you were quite a crowd. I mean, I will tell you, I remember vividly, it does not surprise me. And I want to ask you about being an entrepreneur, but it does not surprise me that that's what you are, or that that's what you've done. Because you did that then. I remember the first one was it selling candy or selling pizza? You bought a pizza and tried selling it in lunchtime, and you were starting businesses in school.
No, it was I think there were two businesses that we had in high school. One, we were selling t-shirts on campus, that was the thing. But then the other was I was the first person I knew with a CD burner. And so this was like sorcery. I could take MP3s and make my own playlists. Like this hadn't been done since the tape cassette.
Yes, yes.
And then I was able, and then back then people didn't have MP3s. And so the fact that I could curate like a 15-song CD and then sell that at school like that, and I would sell it for like $20, which is like the cost of a CD because I was curating all the best singles.
Yeah.
And so that was a good business.
But I think I remember shutting something down before that. It was really, I think it was in middle school. And I loved it because you looked at me and you said, well, why not? And it was like, I didn't have to this day, I didn't have a really great answer. But I so appreciate it. So the fact that you're, starting businesses and building businesses is like, well, of course, what else is he going to do? He was born with that. But I'm actually curious about that. Like, where did that, you have any insight into like where that, because you were doing that, you were thinking in that direction as a little kid.
Yeah, so it's interesting. One thing that I haven't quite figured out, maybe you can diagnose me today with my problem, because I know I have a problem. But for me, I just liked doing interesting things. Like it was never about making money. Well, it's funny. Here's another thing I didn't necessarily realize. Like, I grew up in a fancy little bubble called Pacific Palisades that you know, obviously.
Yeah.
And
the Pacific Palisades in California, for those who don't.
And we lived in like a normal one-story house. We didn't have a pool. We didn't live in a gated community. And so I actually thought I didn't have money, and thought I was like middle class, right? For sure. until I attended New Roads for the first time
Mhm.
and found out that I like wasn't the poorest person that I knew, which living in the bubble Pacific Palisades, I kind of was, which was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know I was rich until way later, until I was like 14 years old, which is crazy, right? So again, but I was never motivated by money and all the companies and web pages and bootysmack.com and all these little web projects that Logan Hess and I would create. Like we just like building stuff and like starting things. And so that was always the motivation. It was never about like, okay, how can we make a quick buck so I can like buy something? Like I
Right.
literally never crossed my mind. And even with companies that we started later in life, like it was just about building cool stuff. It's just another web project. And so I think I liked the dream of like just making things more than like, ooh, I want to make money and like we got
Yeah.
to flip this and turn this. And that's why a lot of like boring businesses have never appealed to me, because I kind of want to do something insane and crazy. And like we're not talk about June right now, but like with June, Nikhil and I, we decided we're going to start an appliance company from scratch. None of us have ever worked on an appliance. We know nothing about the industry. We have no ability to make hardware or manufacture, and we have this idea and we're going to will it into existence because we want this thing in our home. And
Do you
maybe a good business will come later.
and do you think that the stuff you did before June, was that, do you see that, you look back and sort of see that as preparation, or June really was just like a bolt of lightning just because you well, what, in fact, talk about that. Like, where did that bolt of lightning come from? Where did you just want you just want to cook?
Sure. So I'll go back a little bit to a
Yeah.
little bit of the Zimride story a bit, and then I'll kind of parlay that into
Yeah.
how I've thought about my career. Um, so in high school and college, my best friends and I, Logan and Heston, who I was with this past weekend, even now we're old and 38 years old,
Oh
but
god.
we've been like best friends since like honestly seventh, eighth grade. So we're 13, 14 years old. And we were always starting little,
Troublemakers right from the beginning. No, actually,
yes,
great fun students, but always doing something.
yes, thank you
Yeah.
again for not expelling us. But from so we were always starting little web companies, projects, and things like that throughout time. And Logan and I were backpacking in Africa one summer in college. We were in Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe. And one of the things that Logan noticed was in Zimbabwe, the economy was so bad that everyone was only driving their car if every seat was filled and everyone was paying gas money. And so like when we'd like go took our ride to the airport, the car had no gasoline in it. It had just enough to get to the guy with gasoline. And they're like, "Are you sure you don't want to fill this extra seat up in this car? There's one additional seat." And we're like, "No, we're okay. Thank you. We'll pay for that." And so this kind of lightning bolt came to Logan. He's like, "How do I fill empty seats in cars back in California?" And so we started this company called Zimride, named after Zimbabwe, and it
Mhm.
was always Logan's baby, and I was just along for the ride. But again, we weren't trying to make money. We weren't trying to like start a company. Like we just wanted to make another fun, cool thing that we thought would be interesting to fill
Mhm.
empty seats in cars. And then we're still like end of college and then graduation. We were trying to figure out kind of our post college plan, and we were trying to raise money. And I was sending cold messages to people on Facebook saying like, "Hello, would you like to meet with our transportation startup and give us money?" And no one would take us seriously at the time. And I remember there was this one meeting where this guy reached out to us, was a director at eBay, this guy Sean Argawal, and said like, "Hello, I would like to invest in Zimride." And Logan like, like, why would someone want to invest in this thing? Like, this has got to be a scam. This person's going to take money from us. And so we met him at a public place at Togo's in Fremont, so he didn't like take our wallets. And fast fast forward, he was totally legit, and he liked the product, and he wrote the first check to Zimride. And fast forward, I believe he's chairman of the board of Lyft,
Oh,
that
is that
guy.
right?
He took Trulia public. He was an investor in June. Like he's a super legit, incredible
That's
person.
great.
But anyway, but back then, other than Sean, no one believed in us. And so I said to Logan, I said, hey, this is your baby. I'm clearly not ready to start a company, because that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to start things, build things. I'm not ready. This is not my time. This is not my company. I
Wait,
want to
slow
go.
down, slow down. When you say
Yeah.
you were not ready, what do you mean? You mean you felt like you didn't have the skills, you didn't have what was missing?
It's so like there's this like moment as a entrepreneur where you need either third party validation that you should keep doing something, or you just have that intrinsic drive that like this is your life's work and nothing else matters, and you will just
Right,
fail and
right,
have no income and be, not develop any skills other
yes,
than the
right,
struggling along the way skills.
right.
And so for me at that time with Zimride, I needed validation, right? For Logan, he had to build this thing. It was his baby. He was obsessed with transportation. He had
He
to
was
keep going.
obsessed.
For
He really
me,
was. Yeah.
I was along for the ride and it was
Hmm.
fun, but it was that time I was like, okay, well, it doesn't seem to be my time to be an
Hmm.
entrepreneur yet. And so I said, I want to go learn from other entrepreneurs. And so I made a list of my top 10 favorite companies at the time. So this is 2007. So this is like Web 2.0 is about to start.
Right.
And I said, I'm just going to bother the CEOs and founders of all these companies until they hire me. And so I kind of decided I call it getting my MBA in startups. I don't have an MBA, but it's like getting my MBA in startups. So I reached out to this company called Digg, which is started by its founder Kevin Rose, and who today is famous for everything he's doing in the NFT crypto space.
Is
But
is
back,
Digg still around or no? It's gone.
it's there's a company that owns the logo and the web page, but Digg as Digg, the
Right.
wonderful company that it was, does not exist anymore.
Right. Right.
I would say the closest thing, if you're trying to understand what Digg is think of how cool Reddit is today.
Yeah.
We were way cooler than Reddit in 2006, 2007, 2008. But obviously, Reddit won, we lost.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
but anyway, but at the time, Digg was like the gravitational pull of the earth in Silicon Valley. Kevin was just on the cover of Business Week. The team was maybe like 14 people. And I just pretty much bothered them until they hired me. They said, okay, Matt, we'll hire you. Your title is marketing assistant. We're going to pay you $40,000 a year. I'm like, you're going to pay me? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, that is a bad decision. And and then I went in there and I tried to be a sponge because I knew I wanted to start something again. And so, but I didn't know when or when the lightning would strike, etc. And
Hmm.
so I spent 3 years there just trying to learn as much as possible. I would like see this woman who's in charge of PR. I'm like, hi, what is PR? Cool. I take lots of notes. Actually, I would type notes. Computer nerd. Let's not forget that I bring a
Hmm.
laptop to school before it was a thing. Um, and I would do that like, okay, engineering, tell me more about your specific sect. What is development ops engineering? And I would just like try and learn as much as possible and meet as many people as possible. And I was a little bit insane. I would arrive at usually 7 o'clock in the morning. I would leave usually 9 o'clock at night. My now wife was in law school, which was like amazing for this period of life because she had no time for me. And so it was great that I was able to work all the time, and I loved it. And then my old boss from Apple reached out to me and said he was starting a new company called Path to try and take down Facebook with a bunch of ex-Facebook Apple people. And I was like, sounds crazy. I like crazy. Let's do it. And again, this company, Dave Moore, incredible entrepreneur, and Sean Fanning and Dustin Miro, Sean Fanning, founder of Napster.
Yeah.
Like the first meeting was in like Sean Fanning's apartment, and I'm just like, this is crazy. Like, what is this world? And then got to know them and was one of the first 10 people to join there. And luckily they did pay me more than 40 grand. Now I made a market like VP salary at the time. Um, and then, but I got to be Dave's right-hand person and learn from the craziness of that. At one point we had Google offered us $100 million to sell the company when we were 12 people in Fanning's apartment. We had 0 users, 0 customers. We ended up turning it down. I like negotiated that whole deal. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. Like, it was a crazy learning experience.
And turned it down because he thought there was a pot of gold at the end of that. Like he
Yeah,
was still, yeah, still
absolutely.
aiming.
I mean, we hadn't launched yet. It's kind of like, again,
Yeah,
like there's the different entrepreneurs dilemmas back to that, like validation versus like intrinsic thing. Like the
yeah,
validation, Google wants to buy you for 100 million,
sure,
but you're like, okay, well, and Instagram hadn't sold for $1 billion yet. But when
right,
Instagram for $1 billion came out, that was bananas. And Instagram's worth a lot more than $1 billion today. So it actually was a bad deal if you look at how
right,
much market cap
right.
value that's
Yeah,
added
yeah.
to
I mean, the good news
Meta.
is, right, they want to buy you for $100 million. That means it's way more valuable than that.
Totally.
Right.
And again, I was not one of the founders. It was not my decision, and it was one of the best things that ever could have happened, even though it would have been very nice financially.
Sure.
It was one of the best things to ever happen to me because a few months later, my co-founder of June, Nikhil, left Apple to join Path because we had a lot of ex-Apple people at Path, and so the two of us got to meet, which then later led to the journey that became
Mhm.
Jig.
So how did you know? How did you know when it was your time? Like, right. So at some point you're gonna, right, you want to start something, and what you had done before, at least from the point of view of this business about hardware, right? I mean, you're gonna make a thing,
Mhm.
right? This is not just software. It's not just, a service. It's not. It's a thing, and manufacturing and all of that. What made you think, or I mean, I don't know if you can put your hands on that, but like, how'd you know that was it? There's some, all of a sudden, there you go, like on your mark, get set, and then you become obsessed, I'm assuming.
Yeah. First we became obsessed with the idea of wanting to work together. And so we went for a walk and he's like, what would starting a company look like?
And you're both still at
Correct. Yep.
Path.
Yep. We're both still at Path.
Got it.
And so we and then so we started spending a lot of time in my apartment and his apartment, just thinking like, okay, let's do this. But what is this? And so we're thinking of ideas. I remember I was on like a airplane. Lauren and I went to Mongolia and China for fun. And like I remember on the airplane, I'm like, okay, like Lauren, we have 10 minutes to write down 10 ideas. Go. Like we're just like trying to think of anything. And then Nikhil and I are doing similar exercises and nothing is quite
So the
quite
impetus,
clicking.
wait, so you wanted to start a company, you wanted to work with this guy starting a company because,
Yes.
but the what it was came next. This was
Didn't
just
matter.
about
Yes.
started.
The the
This was the moment. This was going to be your
yes.
baby.
Yes. And so for
Wow.
the only requirement that we had was so my last two startups that I worked at, Path and Digg, neither made money. Like they were both free services that would figure out how to monetize later, similar to like Facebook or Twitter. It's
Right.
like, okay, we'll figure out advertising later. And
Right.
some do, some don't. And so the one requirement we had was that the day we launched, announced what we were doing, we had to make money, whatever that means. We could have done a social software that we charged for, or it could have
Right.
been a hardware product that we charged for, but like we had to collect credit cards the day we launched. That was the only requirement. And for Nikhil and I, and again back to my childhood being a computer nerd, I wasn't just a computer nerd, I was an Apple nerd, right? So
Yes,
like
that's true.
my dad, and I was very lucky that my dad had a Mac because his industry, the film industry, used Mac since the 80s. It was one of the only when Macs were not cool in
Right.
the 80s and 90s.
Right.
And so I grew up in what I'll call the church of Steve Jobs. Like I would go and camp out at Macworld with my dad, like literally to go see Steve Jobs speak in like high school and middle school. And that was like one of my favorite things in the world was that geeky Apple world. And so anyways, and Nikhil had worked at Apple and worked on the secret project, which later
As a
became,
software engineer.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was recruited to the camera team on the iPhone 1. So the original iPhone camera. So
Hmm.
Nikhil went on and invented a lot of Apple's core camera technology. So tap to focus, instant shutter, panorama. So he literally invented, he was frustrated with how long it took to get from the lock screen and having to type in your password to get to the camera because like the photo would be gone by then. So he just built this feature where you just like press a button and even without entering your password, you can take a photo. And no one asked him to build that. No one gave him a spec for it. He just thought it would be cool and wanted it for himself. So he built it. And I think we probably all use that feature.
Everybody does. Yeah,
um,
exactly.
and so, um, And so we're spending lots of time, my place, his place, trying to come up with the idea. It just has to make money. That's the only requirement. And we'd start to get hungry late at night, and we'd start cooking. We'd start cooking like very simple meals like Eggo waffles. And then one time I remember we were stuffing Cornish game hens and with limes.
Wait, to
And
go from waffles to game hens is a jump.
yes, it was a jump. And then I remember Lauren came home once and she's like, "What the heck are you guys doing? Aren't
And
you supposed to be
are
working on
you
your
married
business
by
idea?"
then? Are you married by then?
Are we married by then? Yes,
Yeah,
we're married by then. We
got
have
it.
no kids. We have no kids
Right.
at the time. And she comes and like, "What are you doing? You're supposed to be working your business idea. Why are you guys just cooking?" We're like, "Hold on, we might be onto something." And we had this little toaster oven, and we had this terrible looking built. It was a fancy apartment, like downtown San Francisco apartment with like a really nice oven, and it was garbage. It was not a good oven. The interface didn't make sense. I was afraid of it. I never used it. And for us, we loved great products, high quality design, big Apple nerds.
Yes.
We're very inspired by what Tesla was doing at the time. And we looked at the industry and we said, no one seems to be innovating in this kind of old school appliance industry. Why not us? And there are 10,000 reasons why not us. But we just put on those entrepreneur blinders of all the reasons we shouldn't do this. And we willed our way from one challenge to the next until
Was
we
there
had a
any,
thing.
was there any, was there anything, I know there was nothing like, was there anything like it? Was there anything in the neighborhood before you guys decided, oh,
No,
smart oven, an oven
no.
that will recognize the food? Like maybe you should say just briefly what the June, because we haven't spoken about that, what the June oven is. What is
Sure.
it?
Yeah. So I'll talk you through the experience. So it's a countertop oven that you could fit. You can do toast in, but you can also fit two large chickens in at the same time, just to kind of
You're
size it a
back
little
to
bit.
those game
And
hens. Yeah.
yeah, well, no, two whole chickens. Game hens are tiny.
Yes.
And so um, we have a camera that sits on the top, and we have a touchscreen that sits on the front. And the experience of, so I did whole chicken with sweet potato and Brussels sprouts this week. And so I just put that on the June pan. I haven't even turned on the June. I put it in, I close the door, and it says, "I see whole chicken. Uh, would you like to cook it the same way as last time?" And you just say yes. And then we recognize what the food was. We've invented the world's first like food identification algorithm for appliances. And then we then run a multi-step cook program for this. So on our chicken, we actually run this mode called virtual rotisserie, where if you think about what a rotisserie is you move, there's one heating source, and then you move the meat around.
Yes.
But if you're able to automate an appliance, if you're able to automate an oven, we were able to, with our 6 heating elements, create a virtual rotisserie. So instead of moving the meat, the chicken's not moving, we move the heating elements in terms of turning on the light. And we have these
Is
carbon fiber heating elements, they're full power in 3 seconds. And
is
we're
the
able to
chicken
emulate that in software.
is the chicken and the Brussels sprouts and the sweet potatoes, I think that's what it was, in there all at the same time?
Yeah, so what I do is I kind of, at the base layer, we've got the sweet potatoes and the Brussels sprouts, and then the bird on top of the roasting rack. And so the fat and the juices from the chicken make the vegetables taste extra amazing.
And the oven is smart enough to know I have to treat the Brussels sprouts different from the sweet potatoes from the chicken.
It's expert in the primary cook program. So the primary cook program, the one that you don't want to mess up, is the chicken. You don't want to undercook it. You don't want to overcook it.
Right.
Vegetables are surprisingly forgiving. And obviously, you could burn
Sure.
the
Sure.
vegetables, but
Got it.
this one, and we have in our app, we have these beautiful walkthrough guided recipes
Understood.
that coach you on all the things that would
Yeah.
work well together.
Yeah. How long did it take you guys to go from, hey, I've got an idea, let's build the oven, right? Those game hens paid off. You should put them up on the wall. You shouldn't have eaten them.
We have, I can show it to you quickly. We have the first piece of toast ever cooked by AI in the office, and so we literally covered it in
Polyurethane.
I was in the lab this week, and so I took a photo of. I mean, obviously it's there. So okay, so this is the first June toast. So it hangs in the office. Toast, December 19th, 2014, acrylic on wheat bread. So this was the first time in the world that an artificial intelligent computer told an oven how to cook something and cook it perfectly.
That's great.
Is that piece
That's
of toast?
Okay, so but how long from the hey, this is a I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's an idea, right? So how long from that moment
Yeah.
to launch?
Yeah. So we quit our jobs and started the company October 2013.
You quit our jobs means you've had some way of surviving.
We didn't know that then. We luckily had employed wives
That's
with
good. Yes.
normal jobs, so
Employed
we were
wives who liked
we,
you.
yeah. So we'd calculated we could probably go like 3 months without a paycheck type of thing at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and then so that was October 2013, and then June 9th, 2015. So that's about 2 years later. We didn't ship. Don't get ahead of ourselves. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But June 9th, 2015, we announced to the world what we were doing. And we had amazing, beautiful video. Our team was probably like 25, 30 people at the time. And we had a demo that we weren't comfortable showing on camera yet. So we could have a reporter come to our office, and we would put like chocolate chip cookies in, and we'd recognize them, and then we'd cook it. But it was running hardware that we were embarrassed by. And so it was actually, there was this thing we called the shark fin, where at some point we hadn't shrunk the computer to fit inside the oven yet. And so there was just a shark fin that sat on top of the oven. That was the whole computer. It was not inside the oven yet. And so we weren't comfortable with photos of the shark fin. But a few months later, we actually demoed on stage at the Wall Street Journal conference, the first live demo of the June oven. And so that was about 2 years to be able to demo something. And then probably another year and a half to ship first product.
And how long between inception of let's do this to you raise some money? Because, you know, to build a team of 25 before anything sold.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, with that, obviously that process, well, that process is usually grueling, right? So like
yep.
everybody, it's no, 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 no. Okay. No, 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 no. Okay. Was it that for you?
So one of the things that, if I go back to trying to think about fundraising with Logan and Zimride in the beginning, is I didn't want to be an outsider this time, if that makes sense. Like a Silicon Valley outsider. I wanted to be an insider, and I wanted this moment to be easy. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't as hard as it would have been otherwise. And so, like I kind of said, my MBA in startups over that 6-year period, I was very fortunate that I was able to meet and get to know a lot of Digg's investors, a lot of past investors, a lot of folks within the industry. And so in the early days, we hadn't raised money. And like the first 3 months, we wanted to kind of have something to show, just like a document with like some beautiful industrial design and a little pitch deck.
Yeah.
And so we had the pitch deck, and we went out, and like we almost couldn't say it with a straight face. We're like, we're looking to raise $5 million, like saying if they would take us seriously. And people said yes. I guess we're interested. And so we're very fortunate that First Round Capital was one of our first investors. They were the first check into Uber, as an example. First Round Capital said that they called me up. They said, Matt, you're insane, but Nikhil seems smart, so we're in. I'm like, okay, didn't say I was smart, but that's fine. I don't need that.
At least somebody's
then,
smart.
And then once we had that validation of First Round Capital, one of, if not the most important seed investor,
Yeah.
at the time, then other people are like, oh, I want to get in this. What is this? Like the future of cooking, this the future of smart kitchen. And
Yeah.
then we were very fortunate to get connected with Foundry Group out of Boulder, and Jason Mendelson uh, was single at the time, and he was like, man, this would have like made my life so much better. Bachelor mode, like I would have looked like a superstar if I had
I
this
would have
oven.
never gotten married.
Uh, and I don't know the exact timing of when he met Jen relative to when he had his June oven, because he had a very early one. There was definitely overlap.
He owes you big time.
I don't know if that's true, but Jen and Jason have been incredible supporters of us, and so we ended up raising a $7 million round out the gate off of
Wow.
a off of
That's
a
great.
keynote presentation. Like we
Right.
had no oven, we had no demo, we had Nikhil and I and a crazy idea, and so we were very lucky and fortunate that actually
That's
pretty
that's a
pretty
really
easily we were able to raise that round. Again, we got plenty of rejections, and later rounds we got almost 100% no's, but it was never 100%. But like that first round, just the insanity of our idea, the quality of the potential combo of Nikhil and I made people excited about it.
and perhaps also the time. It was, it was the beginning of the smart everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
the
people recognized that something was coming. They didn't know what it was going to be,
yep,
but yeah,
and
that's
and
great.
for us, kind of a part of our original story, that we knew we had to make up for our weaknesses. So I'd say our two biggest weaknesses were we had no hardware legitimacy, even though Nikhil worked on iPhones, he worked on the software side,
Yeah.
and so we had no like hardware manufacturing experience, and then we also had no culinary legitimacy. So those two things, and so kind of the first two folks that were, or three folks that were most important to get on board, was one, we needed some legitimacy in the culinary space. And so we got connected to Chef Michael Mina, a Michelin starred chef in the Bay Area. And thank you, Carl, for the introduction there. And Michael was like, I get it. I want to help. I want to be a part of this. So we suddenly had a slide with Michael Mina on it. And then Matt Rogers. So kind of back to the connected devices at the time, Nest was like the company, Tony Fidel
Oh,
and
yes.
Matt Rogers. And I didn't know Tony very well at the time. I know him better now, but Matt Rogers said he loved what we were doing and was going to invest. And so suddenly now I have a Matt Rogers slide. So I was like, look, Michelin starred chef, look, the founder of Nest, like, look, Nikhil and I, look at our smiling faces, look how awesome we are. You should give us money. And so we kind of, and then the third person was this guy Liam Casey, who's known as Mr. China. There's really interesting articles about him, and Liam just was the earliest, most excited supporter of us. And he's like, yeah, he's Irish, I'm gonna do my
I
best
was going
Irish
to say
accent.
he's an Irish
Yeah,
guy, right? Isn't
yeah,
he? He's
yeah,
known
he's
as
like,
Mr. China.
yes. So Liam's, yes, he's Mr. China. He's like, so I'm gonna do a terrible Irish accent. I was like, yeah, I get what you're doing. You're gonna do what Apple did for the computer industry and iPhones. You're gonna do that for the kitchen. I'm in. Let's figure it out. And so he's sent so many incredible introductions. He like took us on our first factory tour visits in China, watching toaster ovens get built. And so we were very lucky to have all this
Wow.
early validation.
Very lucky and also uh, very skilled, right? I mean, it it sounds like, it didn't just fall in your lap. You there was strategy there, right? I mean, even though you didn't know what it was going to be strategy for, that piece about meeting everybody you possibly could while you were at Digg or Path or both.
Both.
And I mean, I love that. Not It's a different experience being raising money from the inside than from who are these guys and like what have you ever done. I understand the impetus to have your own baby, right? I get that, and I get that it takes a sort of obsession, drive, right? And question. There's a question, like, for lack of a better, it's like Kenny Rogers question, like, when to hold them, when to fold them, and so how did you know at all? I mean, was the first round so I don't want to throw it away like it was easy, but was the first round being easier than it could have been? Uh, that like wind behind your back pushing you
Oh,
forward so that
oh, for
it
sure.
helped? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So like, your ego goes through the roof at that point, right? When
Yeah.
you've got this amazing validation. But don't worry, there are people that bring you back down to earth with all the rejection that comes in later rounds.
And
And
why,
so
and is that a common phenomenon, that somehow the first round is easier than the
I,
next and the
it
next?
rounds are very binary. So we raised 4 rounds of funding for June. The first round, the $7 million round, was shockingly easy because there's a lot of money for good teams, and it doesn't even matter what the idea is, right?
Yeah.
So like a good
Yeah.
team, legitimate inventor from Apple, this crazy guy Matt who seems to know a bunch of people, and has experience with Zimride and Lyft.
Yeah.
Like here's some money. Like we might lose it, but like good teams are hard to come by versus
Right.
like good
Right.
ideas like with an unknown team is worse, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and
A
then
great idea with a shitty team or an unknown team is okay. Good idea.
right,
Right.
exactly. And then
Yeah.
at the late stage, we'll talk about the last round we had. So our last round was led by Weber, and so that was our largest round of funding. And they led that round, and there was attached to it was a huge strategic partnership where they were paying us per grill that had June technology on it. This is before they bought us. So they later bought us, is the kind of punchline on this.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
3 years before
I
they
want to talk
bought
about
us,
that in a second. Yeah.
they led our round of funding. And so that round, with this incredible validation and guaranteed revenue on a per grill sold basis, that round was really easy to raise
Right.
because we had a strategic, and
Yeah.
we created a whole new business model for ourselves where we weren't just selling boxes
Yes.
and
Exactly.
individual ovens anymore. We were able to sell this per unit software
To,
licensing.
to the
And
largest grill company in the universe, right? Yeah.
totally. And so what's interesting is, so the first round pretty easy, the last round pretty easy. Those other two, like almost
Brutal.
death,
Really.
like shutting down, laying everyone off, death on
Wow.
both of them at times.
Wow.
And we somehow persevered. But to answer your question, I would say it's very binary. It's either really really easy generally or
Mhm.
really really hard.
And so, and this is not intended in any way as a gotcha question, because but and I don't understand what the deal is, but you'll enlighten us. But so Weber sort of reapproaches you or approaches you and says,
Mm-hmm.
like, we want it. And they're like, well, you already got it. No, we want it,
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing. And that worked out, and you guys sold to it, and you're still, I mean,
Yep.
I don't know how it's organized yet, right? You're still is it its own division, or is it a division of Weber, or is it a joint venture? Is it however you've structured it, you're still the CEO of it?
Yeah.
Or is
So
that?
the way to think about it is Weber acquired 100% of the company.
Yeah.
And June, think of it as its own like independent brand within Weber. So they're kind
Yeah.
of the June oven is the product within this brand of June. And so I run that, and then Nikhil runs connected devices, which is tied to now any smart product that Weber or June makes, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
And so we've announced a series of smart grills that are in the market now, gas grills, pellet grills. And so that's
Mhm.
June technology, which is now Weber technology,
Yes.
that powers those products.
So, and here's the question that is, again, not intended as a gotcha product, but I mean, a gotcha question. Do you feel like your baby is no longer your baby?
Maybe if I didn't run June still, but luckily I do, which is really, really nice.
Right.
And so, I think the impact I have on the overall picture, right? When like my stuff is the most important thing at June, like June, we're still small within Weber, right? So
Sure.
it's a different perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm very lucky and fortunate that I get to think about June. I'll call it 90% of the day I'm spending some time on grill stuff, not
Still
as much as
thinking about
Nikhil,
June.
obviously. But yeah, so it's amazing that I get to still focus and work on that. And another really nice thing about remote work, so we announced early in the pandemic that no one ever had to come to the office again. that they can move anywhere in the world. We had someone move to Portugal, we had someone moving to Japan, we hired our first engineer in Brazil, and a lot of people were able to move different places. I moved to Seattle from San Francisco, and what's something that's really nice about remote culture is I think the office vibe didn't change post acquisition because there's no office. If that makes any sense. Like I think it would have been worse in a non-remote time to have done the acquisition, but we were already remote for a year when the acquisition happened, and so it's honestly it's worked out really well in that sense.
Yeah, when you went to college, you studied. As I recall, maybe I could have this wrong. Did you study entrepreneurship in? I mean, it was a program. I remember you told me a story years ago about not being like you wanted to get into that program right away, but you couldn't because you had to be in college a couple of years before you could even apply. But you wanted to study entrepreneurship. You didn't opt to study business, whatever that means. I mean, obviously you learned some of that, but so do you feel like there's a difference? Like, what did you learn? And here's the parallel question, because maybe you can answer it all at once, but it's like, it sounds so much like what you've done and maybe what many entrepreneurs do. I don't know. It's hard to imagine opening a textbook and and getting an education in that. It seems like that the learning that's needed for the thing that you're doing or that you've done is one of those things. Not, it can't be supplemented with textbooks and courses and whatever, but it's almost like you can only learn that on the ground, in the, like, hands in the dirt, right?
Yeah. So I
Am
mean,
I wrong about that?
so there's a quote I like. I have no idea where it's from. It's not for me. It's like, don't let your schooling get in the way of your education.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, that's Mark Twain. Yeah, I think
Mark
that's
Twain.
Mark Twain. Yeah, it's a really damn good story, damn good quote. Yeah.
So, I for me, so in high school, I was just like a business nerd. I'd read like Fast Company and stuff like that just because I liked it.
Yeah.
And so I decided as a junior to go to University of Arizona because they had a top 3 entrepreneurship program where your senior year you start a company and you go to like a pitch competition, like Shark Tank style, like pre-Shark Tank, but like that type of pitch competition. And some people go on and start their businesses, others go and get jobs.
You'd already done that in high school, hadn't you? With the business class?
I don't know, was there a business class at New Roads?
Yeah. We say it was with you start a company and you have a team and there's a Shark Tank event. Maybe it was after you. Maybe you inspired it.
I think it was after me.
You might have inspired it.
I did not participate in this.
Yeah.
But anyway, so in high school, I show up and I get a meeting with the dean of the University of Arizona Business School. I'm like, hello, I'm coming here to come to your entrepreneurship program. Like, can you pre-accept me? And I was a junior in high school. And he's like, we accept you as a junior in college. Like, I don't know what you're doing here. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll be back. You'll accept me. Thanks. And then fast forward, I was not a good student in college because, again, back to the quote, like other things were filling my cup more. Like I started getting really involved in my fraternity and recruitment. I had a radio show, hip hop radio show. I later ran for student body president. I was involved in student government. Like I was just like a campus nerd is like the best way to describe it. I worked at Apple for 4 years doing marketing. Like that, I enjoyed that stuff more than my school. So I was, I don't know, a B student. So anyway, fast forward, it's now my junior year. I'm applying to my dream program where I get to, start this company and study entrepreneurship. And I don't get in.
You don't get in?
I don't get in. So after all that, I don't get in. But two of my friends got in, and they both were perfect students. They were not as entrepreneurial as me, but they were perfect students. So they got in. And so they were going to orientation, which is where like you chose your teammate and started working on your ideas.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm just going to go. And so I didn't ask for permission. I just showed up at orientation, and there was one software engineer in the whole room. I immediately went towards that person. It's like, we're on the same team way. And then found an incredible finance person and marketing person, and they elected me like GM or CEO of our team. And then afterwards, the people that managed the program, they were like, Matt, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, well, I really want to be here. They're like, are you going to work really hard? I'm like, yes. Like, okay, you're in. And so they accepted me. Um, I was actually talking with someone recently that like maybe
They
one
didn't
day I should.
expel you.
They didn't expel me. Yeah, thanks for that. But anyway, I was thinking one day maybe I should sponsor a scholarship to the entrepreneurship program. It's called like the dummy with bad grades that's still interesting, as decided by me, that gets in. I don't know, maybe something like that. I'll use those exact words.
Yes, yeah, it's got a catchy name.
Go over well.
So do you feel like you learned stuff? Well, I don't want you to talk badly about your college or anything else, but did you get a sense that was that a valuable thing to be doing?
It was.
And
It was awesome. And what's really interesting is it brought earlier in my life that like need for third party validation versus that intrinsic motivation. Like I was able to experience that still as a student. Right. So again, I had the moment later, it's not much later, like a year and
yeah,
a half, 2 years later with
yeah.
Logan is but we had a cool company in the entrepreneurship program. It was really do you know chia, the omega-3 seeds? You buy at Whole
Yes.
Foods.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that didn't exist back then. You couldn't buy them at Whole Foods back then. It was a lost Aztec crop found by University of Arizona professor. And they wrote the book on chia, which has like the highest potency of omega-3. And but there was no manufacturing for it. There was no distribution for it. There was no anything. And so we were working with these professors to bring to life this lost Aztec crop to the world.
Wow.
And it was really cool.
That's really cool.
And
And it
we thought
worked.
chia was a terrible name, so we got rid of it because everyone just thinks of the chia pet,
Yeah.
which is the a similar gene of seed, but without the omega-3 potency. So you could, if
Uh,
you bought a chia pet and just ate the seeds, they would look similar, but there would be no omega-3 because the type of Salvia hispanica that grows in Mexico doesn't have the potency of the omega-3. It has to grow further south, South America, Central America, different parts of Central America. So anyway,
well,
but we
that's
realized
great.
very, very early on, we went to entrepreneurship competition. We got second place at the Boise, Idaho entrepreneurship competition. Like, we're awesome. Now we just have to go raise $10 million and like buy farmland and like do this. And I know nothing about farming or this whole world. And then we're like, okay, who wants to give us the money? Bueller. Like, I thought there were like angel investors part of this entrepreneurship program, and like we probably could have raised like 250K, 500K, but we needed like 10 to 15, and there was no, like, we were not, again, back to like good ideas, bad entrepreneur. We were bad entrepreneurs that needed a lot of money,
Yeah.
and so luckily there wasn't an easy source for us to collect $10 million
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
time, because we were not ready to start. I mean, maybe we could have done it. What's funny is I don't know if I ever told this story before, is one of the professors, so fast forward, I'm like post Zimride, I'm working at Digg, I'm in like the bubble of Silicon Valley, like the heart of it all. I'm like having a blast. I'm making that 40 grand a year. I'm so happy to have a job and it's my passion. I get a cold email from one of the U of A professors. He's like, Matt, I've secured the funding. I want you to come run it. I'm going to be in the United States. Please meet me in Arizona next week, because the growing was in South America. And I was like, my goodness, like what? And I was like, I have to hear this out. And so I was like super shady at work. I like left, and again, I'm there till like 9 o'clock every day. I left work at like 5, took like a 7 p.m. flight, flew to Arizona, met at a hotel restaurant bar, and they were like, Matt, we secured the funding. Like, will you be the GM of like North America to run we're going to bring chia to the world.
And
And
did it ever happen in a big way?
I mean, it obviously happened. I have no idea, to be frank, if it was related to our project. but there's chia
It's
anywhere and
chia
everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah.
I have no equity in any chia. Anyway, I've made $0 from chia. I've only lost money on chia. I eat a lot of it still, but and so I honestly don't know. I should reach out to the professors, but they I've Googled it a few times. There's no clear if they did make money off it. It's not clear. I hope they did. They were
Yeah.
amazing. They
It's
deserved to
great.
make money and all the
Yeah.
credit. But anyway, I turned them down and flew back and went to work the next day and continued my Silicon Valley bubble dreams instead of running an agricultural company making chia
it's
seeds in
it's
South
still with
America.
food. It's still with food, right? I mean,
Yeah,
food of a
it's
different sort,
funny.
but
It did tie to food again later.
yeah. Um, you said something that quote, right? Don't let your education get in the way of your. So, you know, what do you think it is about, or is it? Do you think? Do you think your education, whether it was college, there was a certain. I remember this. There was a certain, because I did it, but fanning the flames, trying to keep the reins on you guys, and at the same time fanning the flames of your enthusiasm. You know, all three of you wanted to do things that didn't, that weren't on the list of you can take this, you can take this, and you can take this. And my attitude was always, well, somebody wants something, a student wants something, you don't want to stand in the way of it. You want to encourage it, right? And so even if it was something like Booty Smack and so whatever, which was that crazy website, but do you think that do you think your education played a role in sort of either giving you whether it's the skills, the emotional impetus, the enthusiasm, the validation or affirmation, or has school mostly been don't let your education get in the way of your learning, or but whatever it is, don't let school get in the way of your
Yeah.
education.
So you and New Roads fostered something magical, and I don't know how to describe it. And it wasn't the weird hippie people you had talked to us at different things, or the person that came and showed me slaughterhouse videos and made me vegan for 2 weeks till my mom called you up and said like, David, he needs to eat food again. He's gonna like lose all the weight he has and he doesn't have any. So like again, like there's something unique and wonderful to that. Obviously, that was interesting, but um, I think that it was just such a different and unique environment that like people felt comfortable being themselves and doing weird things. And I don't know how you like create this holistically, but like if we had a crazy idea, like we would just come to you and be like, hey, can we do this? Like for you guys had high speed internet and we were too, didn't have enough money to pay for high speed internet to plug our server in. And so we're like, hey, can we just like plug into your internet? And we don't know why you said yes. You've told me later why you said yes. You wanted the ability to unplug it.
Yes, I was not just being naive. I mean, the truth is that, like, bracket for a moment, footnote. The truth is that, like, in the school world, every school was wringing their hands, was like, over what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do? Because there was all this free speech issues, and there was, like standing in the way of how do we control it if it's, they're doing it on their own and all that stuff. So when you guys came to me, it was like, well, this is a win-win, because I certainly don't want to get in the way of your exploring stuff. And yet I knew that because of the relationship, not because of, like, I guess I could have pulled the plug, but I knew that, I mean, I think that that's what's one of the things that you were brilliant at, right from the start as a little kid, that the creation of relationships and the fostering of those. And, I knew if there was a picture, or if there was a picture up there of a student giving the finger to a teacher, which there was, I could come to you and say, look, dude, I'm getting too much flack for this. I need a favor. Could you guys, and you always did. And so it was a good thing. It was a good thing. So anyway, fast forward to the you feel like your education both at college and before or after is crucial to, I mean, like there are people who no doubt, you may not think of yourself that way, but like, you started something that a lot of people know about and successful, and they want to be you. So you old 38-year-old guy,
Turned 38 yesterday.
yeah,
Used to be
really.
37. We did this 2 days ago, so
Oh, wow, happy
feeling
birthday.
much older. Thank you.
So you 38 guy talking to, those kids who want to, it's like, what do you tell them? Like, what should they do
Yeah. So again, like the New Roads
other
are kind of
than,
you fostered this environment where like if I had a crazy idea, you'd be like, sure, I don't know, figure it out. Like I'm gonna start a stock picking club, which I started at some point.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
then I remember my basketball coach at New Roads saw how well I was doing the stock picking club, and he's like, hey, I have $10,000 in savings. Like, we invest it for me. I'm like, yeah, of course. And then I told that to my dad. He's like, heck no, you are not investing your basketball coach's life earnings or savings or whatever he's willing to give to you. Um, and I should have. I would have put it all on Apple, done quite well. But anyway, but like you kind of foster that. And in college, that was not true. But there was so much stuff there to like get involved in that I was able to develop the skills that were most useful to me now in business. So like, um, I'll tell you the most valuable thing I did in college that skill set wise developed me to my most useful skill now. So I joined a nerdy Jewish fraternity called AEPI, even though we thought we were cool. We were not that cool. And when I joined, we were probably like 50 people. And I started to get really involved. And one of my things I got really involved in was recruiting. So we had this like meticulous system that we'd been developing where we would find, and we would only recruit Jewish students. And so we would literally like go through the whole phone book of school students and like Jewstein, like, oh yeah, probably a Jew, right? Like all these things. Goldsmith, Goldstein, like Schwartz, like,
Handelbaum?
yeah. How about
Yeah,
Weisberger Coffin? That one turned out to be
a
Jewish.
double.
Nick was in AEPI Arizona with me. And so, but then we had to like come up with like elaborate systems, like get them to an event, and if we could get them statistically to an event, then the odds of them accepting, and then
Sure.
like the classic fraternity thing of like paying for your friends, but like to convince an awkward 18-year-old nerdy Jewish kid that they should like pay for their friends when they had no interest in joining a fraternity. um like that's a really hard thing to
It's a
do
hard
as an act
sell.
of persuasion. And so anyway, but the skills that I developed with my obsession with recruiting back then, and we, by the time I left U of A, we're 150 person chapter. We were the largest API in the Pac-12, and we were the largest fraternity at University of Arizona. And this was like our dedication to recruiting. And so anyway, fast forward, if you were to like talk to people today, like, Matt, what are your best skills? And I'm like, I bring good people together, right? Like I figure out. So like at June when we were acquired by Weber, I think we were like 35% from Apple. And obviously Nikhil's an incredible um, inventor and very well known within that space, but zero of these Apple people had ever met Nikhil before, right? But just like we were able to bring together and recruit kind of, you think about like the awkward.
And were
uh,
you involved in a lot of the recruiting? Well, you certainly when it was
Oh, I
starting
still
up.
am. I
You
still am.
still
Yeah.
are.
We will not hire someone at the company unless Nikhil and I have interviewed them.
That's
Um,
great. I used to do
and
that. That when I was at New Roads, nobody got
well, there's
hired. No one
no,
got hired unless I met them.
no, I know. I
Yeah,
mean, there was, probably
that's
gonna
so
like,
great.
I'm probably gonna, I don't know, maybe want to delete this part. It's more New Roads drama, your drama than my drama. But I remember having this conversation about when you stopped interviewing kids from the middle school
Yeah,
that the quality went down
Yeah.
because like when it was a smaller school, you were able to get them at the start.
Yeah.
And when you were just focused on the high school, you had no say in the sixth, seventh, eighth graders that made. And so
I had a
the
say, but only if my say was only if I wanted a no or a yes, but I didn't meet them, right? Unless
yeah,
I wanted
no,
to. And a
no,
lot
but
of
I
people got accepted.
I remember people describing this as one of the things that changed the magic. That was, it's
Mm,
called David Bryan's New Roads.
yeah,
Was the second you stopped, like you recruited me, Logan, and Heston, right? And so whoever those Logan and Hestons were that
that's right.
interviewed or didn't like again, Heston was too smart to go to New Roads,
Right.
right? Like he had all the grades, but he liked you, right?
Right.
Um, and so like those people that again, so recruiting is like the lifeblood of any organization, is kind of
I agree.
the thing that I've learned, that I learned in college through my fraternity, and that I learned here. But the other thing, and again back to you're asking like for advice for like someone starting out. So something that we started, that I started when I was a senior or super senior in college, was I would sit down all the freshmen, um, and all these kids, like all they want to do is like meet girls and drink alcohol. Like they're 18 years old. They're like not, they don't
Sure.
want to like be entrepreneurs necessarily or do certain things, right? And I would sit them down, and I created this position called the campus involvement chair. And so I'd I had just run for student body president, and I lost. Okay, I got like 44% of the vote. Um, and the reason that happened was the woman who won was better qualified than me. But beside that point, was I did not get involved as a freshman in student government. I got involved later, the last like 3 years of college instead of the first year, right?
Mhm.
And and so I created the system that I wanted every year. My nerdy Jewish fraternity, I wanted to have president of the school. I wanted editor-in-chief of the newspaper. I wanted president of the radio station. I wanted to own the entire campus. Why? I don't know, because I'm just a nerd, right? But like, I was into this stuff, right? And so I created this campus involvement chair. And so me and this person would sit down with every single freshman, and we're like, David, tell me about your interests. Like, what do you like? Like, I don't know,
What
I
do you
like
mean with
music.
every single freshman?
At my fraternity, there's only like 25
Oh,
of them,
oh, I see.
35.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, not in the school.
Oh, it's like
Well, the people
what?
that would curate, these are the AE freshmen,
Right.
right? And someone would be like, oh, I like rap music. I'm like, great. You're going to be president of the radio station in 4 years. To do that, your freshman year, you do this. Your sophomore year, this. You're going to run for this elected position. And then by the time you're senior, you will run the whole school. And they're like, huh? And then like, can I have a beer now? But for a small percentage of those kids, they executed on the plan. And so we ran someone for student body president, I want to say 6 or 7 years in a row. We finally won like 3 years after I left. That guy, I think, is now like a state congressman now, in in Arizona, like the youngest state congressman in the state. That guy who, was was pushed
That's
to,
a
hey, you should
that's a
be student body president. Um, but anyway, another story
that's a
that.
really incredible insight, though, to have as a young. Well, you were young. Well, so Matt, what's next for you? I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to get you in trouble with the Weber folks, but and don't tell us anything about what's coming, because who knows? But you know, you're a talented guy. Are there things noodling around that, geez, it would be great to?
No, I mean, I'm having a blast. I love the June team. I love the Weber team, and having a lot
And
of fun. But
do you work
there will,
mostly with the June team? You work mostly still with the June team. You
yeah. I mean,
interface with the Weber.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, but like it was really fun last week. We hosted the Weber CEO and CMO, and head of creative. Flew out to San Francisco and got to meet a lot of the June team for the first time, and so I got to host him in San Francisco, and which was really really fun to do that and introduce people like Heston and the Weber CEO got to sit next to each other at dinner last week, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, I'm having a blast right now, but there will be a time when I'd love to start another company. So
You would.
that will happen. And
What? Now, let me ask you one more question, which is just, if we stop and I haven't asked you this question, or you haven't had an opportunity to speak about something, X, what's X? Or is there an
it's,
X?
I don't know, I should uh, go buy a June oven. Juneoven.com. Check it out. I think again, I don't know what phase of food
Is, Ju- is
habit.
June Oven, is June Oven, um, is June Oven still developing June Oven to make it better and better and better and better?
Yeah,
Or is most
always
of the shift has gone towards Weber?
yeah, both. There's a lot
Both.
of interesting stuff happening on both ends. But yeah, depending on what current diet you're into, David. At one point, we were having this conversation, and you were literally my worst customer. I think you were a raw vegan at the time, so you weren't even
I was never
cooking
that.
your vegan food.
I,
No, this
wa-
didn't happen. I made
I
this
was
up.
never that. Yeah, you made that happen. You made that up. I mean, I could understand why you made that up and why you
You've
could think
given
it
me
was
this
true.
illusion over the years of you being the
Yes.
most extreme food person I
Yeah,
know.
no, no, no. I just am a breatharian. I live on just air.
That's what it was. Breatharian. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's a pleasure. So Matt, thank you so much for giving the time. I know you're a busy guy. Are you on the phone all day or Zoom or whatever it is? Are you on
Uh,
screens all day long?
yes, all day in
Yeah.
this phone booth
In this phone booth,
in my garage.
in your garage, which is the best place to be because the commute is really good.
It is a good commute.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Matt, I really appreciate you being willing to do this. And I'll let you know when it's all edited and up there. I'm behind in my editing, but
Great.
it's good to see
Well,
you. It's good to see
thank
you.
you so much.